would like to call this Wednesday, August the 24th, Planning Commission to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Chairman Amanda Jackson Denmark.
Here.
Vice Chairman Charlie Wetmore.
Here.
Commissioner Rich Delcor.
Here.
Commissioner Jason Stewart.
Here.
Commissioner Jim Flynn.
Here.
Commissioner Kathleen Duncan. Commissioner Lydia DePaul.
Okay, thank you. Notice regarding adjournment. The Planning Commission, will not hear items after 9:30 unless authorized by a majority vote of the commission members. Items which have not been heard before 9:30 may be continued to the next regular meeting or an additional meeting date as determined by the commission members. Notice regarding public comments. Every member of the public who is recognized to speak shall address the chairman and in speaking avoid disrespect to the commission, town staff, and other members of the meeting. State your name and address when speaking for the records. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. I have an adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Do I have an adoption of the minutes?
Make a motion to table the minutes from July 20th, July 21st, July 22nd, 27th, and August 2nd to the September meeting due to lack of quorum, and approve the minutes of July 13th, 2022.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Public comments. For those who have comments pertaining to an agenda item before the commission this evening, you will have the opportunity to comment before the commission votes on the item. You are welcome to hold your comments until then or voice your comment at this time. So do we have any public comments?
For items not on the agenda, Jane Inglis.
Okay. And we can go ahead and hear that public comment. Hi, please state your name and address for the record.
Inglis is 922 Riverfront Road. So most people aren't aware of, in the last few years, the increase in traffic to the sandbar. That's across from where we live. So we love the increase in traffic. We love the people who go there. We want to encourage that. But the last 3 years, and really the last year, there's been a dramatic increase in the size of the boats, the speed of the boats. And I think people are unaware that they stop in front of the homes there because it's a residential area, and the boat docks, shake, and then the bluff is eroding. So in the last couple years, we've lost 5 feet of our bluff in the May River, and 2 trees have fallen down. And we've had 2 trees this year professionally cut down so they wouldn't fall down. So it's really an education issue, and maybe there's something with more of a no wake, because all the homes that are there, the bluffs are eroding. I mean, over 5 feet in 2 years. And I know on March 14th, Governor McMaster passed into law that all waters in South Carolina, that there is no, what they have in quotes, wake surfing within 200 feet of a dock in all South Carolina waters. So I don't know if that's something that can help us. Again, we love having people go and enjoy it. That's not the issue. The issue is more education and the dramatic increase in the boats. But if there's something with no wake, it would be great.
Thank you very much. Do we have any old business? So we will be going into the Midpoint at New Riverside Master Plan Amendment, a request by Planning Homes on behalf of Walcom Land Group for approval of Master Plan Amendment application.
The Midpoint, or Master Plan Amendment for Midpoint at New Riverside. First slide is an aerial showing the location of the property. The vicinity map that was submitted by the applicant showing the same thing. We're just east of New Riverside Road, right across from May River High School. The requested change, the applicant, Patterson Farmer of Pulte Homes, LLC, with authorization from the owner, Walcam, is requesting approval for an amendment to the master plan for Midpoint at New Riverside and the New Riverside PUD. More specifically, a revised layout for the remaining undeveloped area of Midpoint at New Riverside master plan. Project will consist of 498 total residential dwelling units, with 98 of the units constructed as Phase 1A and 400 being proposed single-family detached residential units. The applicant also proposes several amenities, including lagoons, recreation areas and parks, nature trails, and an extensive sidewalk network. This is the existing plan. This is the proposed plan, and I'll come back to this in 1 second. And this is the phasing. Sorry, I don't see my slide that describes this plan was submitted at the July Planning Commission, and it was tabled. I'm sorry, let me come back to this. This is the existing master plan. This is the proposed master plan. I apologize for not having the slide available, so I'm going to pull it up here. Previous Planning Commission meeting, it was tabled. There were 5 issues with the Planning Commission, and I'll go through each of them. First one was to provide updated letters of approval from the applicable agencies. The applicant response, the applicant's resubmittal includes updated letters from 6 agencies and proof of requested letters from the remaining 3 agencies. Planning Commission issue number 2 was provided a letter confirming that the adjacent property owner has agreed to provide additional land to accommodate the second access point. The applicant's response, the applicant's resubmittal includes written confirmation of an agreement by the adjacent landowner to provide additional land to Pulte to accommodate the second access point. That was a letter from the lawyer that was included in the packet. Planning Commission issue 3 was provide updated exhibits that incorporate the second access road. The applicant's response was the applicant resubmittal included updated exhibits incorporating the second access road, and I can point that out on this where we're talking about here is a second access point being purchased from the property to the south. Planning Commission issue number 4 was to summarize the coordination efforts with the current Midpoint Property Owners Association. The applicant's response was the applicant's resubmittal contains a summary of the coordinated efforts, including supporting email correspondence. And the final Planning Commission issue 5 was provide an updated traffic impact analysis based on current conditions. Recommended mitigation measures shall be included on development plans prior to final development plan approval. And the applicant's response was the applicant resubmittal acknowledges that based on the findings of the TIA, the traffic impact analysis currently being prepared, additional off-site improvements may be required. This is the updated phasing plan. It's changed based upon the second access point. These are the review criteria. And this is the master plan amendment review process. As you can see, step 4 was Planning Commission recommendation on July 27th. It was tabled. We're here at August 24th meeting for Planning Commission for recommendation, and then it will go on to Town Council at a date to be determined. Planning Commission actions for consideration are recommend approval of the application as submitted by the applicant, recommend approval of the application with conditions, or recommend denial of the application as submitted by the applicant. Staff's recommendation is approval with conditions. Town finds that the requirements of Section 393 of the Unified Development Ordinance can be met with the following conditions, and recommends that the Planning Commission provide a recommendation of condition approval to Town Council for the Midpoint at New Riverside Master Plan Amendment. Just one recommendation, that's provide an updated TIA based on current conditions. Recommended mitigation measures shall be included on development plans prior to final development plan approval. And as I already mentioned, they've got one in the works. It's just put in here as a recommendation since we don't have the results from it yet. So if you have any questions, other than why I'm missing the slide.
Any questions for Dan, and you want to hear the applicant first? No questions? All good?
All set.
Okay, does the applicant want to speak?
Hi, I'm Rob Merrick with Pulte Group. Just want to say that, speaking to the TIA, we did have the actual traffic counts completed this week. We wanted to wait till school was in session so we can make the appropriate counts. We'll expect to have that reviewed probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So based off the recommendations, we're requesting approval to be able to move forward to Town Council.
Thank you. And there were no public comments regarding this item?
No, this one.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or motions, questions?
Or we met everything.
I had two things that I think we need to discuss. Number one is the location of the, I don't know that we need to put anything into our recommendation for approval, but the location of the gate for the secondary access. Has there been a discussion about, I see on what's on the screen now, it's different than what we had, so the gate is going to be further back in?
My understanding is that we put them both on there as optional, just so it's either or, so that way they don't need to come back to you with an amendment to show a proposed location if it were to change. So there will be, if there's one, there's only one.
Okay. The reason I bring it up is I don't want to see what's happening now and we're dealing with now on the contractor entrance to Palmetto Bluff, where the gate is right up on New Riverside Road and there's no room for queuing. That's why I'm asking.
With that, again, this is just a conceptual to state at the front during the development plan process. We would make sure that there was sufficient stacking for vehicles, so that way nothing would be out into the road.
And same thing for the main entrance. If, say, it were to be towards the front, it would probably be past that.
Correct. We would push them back to make sure there was sufficient stacking. Yeah, just obviously from the conceptual standpoint, it's just at the front, but there'd be plenty of space.
And the only other thing I have is one that we may or may not want to discuss, but we need to discuss, and that's the letter we received from the school district. Appears to state that they will not provide the capacity for any new students in this.
So I would tell you that when the initial plan unit development came in, as with all plan unit developments, that we received letters and the information was provided at that time. So that was over 20 years ago. So while we're requesting it, and I understand that there is a letter there, this was information that has been in the books for over 20 years for the school district to be fully aware of it and know the number of units that are being constructed over the years. I'd also, state that, at that point, I'm not sure if Beaufort County is also doing the same thing with development that's in unincorporated Beaufort County.
But this is something we not necessarily can take into account with our motion because this was a plan that had been in place for many years. We're not doing anything different. We're not adding. This has already been accounted for.
My question is that we've not seen this before. Typically, they have to, by law, I think, they have to provide the schooling. This one, it seems to be a different statement than I've seen before, but maybe I haven't seen enough of them.
Yeah, I think it's a different statement. I don't know why Beaufort County changed it. But like Kevin was saying, this had already been accounted for 20 years.
Yep.
And for them to just put this new sentence in here, I don't really know why they've done that. So.
And I did a little research on it as well, too, because I know from the past that this always comes up as a problem, and talking with town staff, found out that, yes, the projections for the numbers of the population growth of the town of Bluffton has been in existence from back then, from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and it has grown continuously and is on track. That made me feel better, at least about that, from that standpoint, I will say.
Yeah, the wording of the letter just is, it's almost like they didn't answer the question. And the reason I bring it up is because staff and the applicant are now going to go to town council. If the five of us do recommend it for approval, actually, even if we don't, you're still going to council. That may be problematic there. So we're just pointing it out for potentially dealing with.
Madam Chairwoman, if I may, again, for the record, Richardson LaBruce, Finger Mountain, Brooks and LaBruce, and Hillhead, here representing the Planning Commission and answering questions that y'all may have. Given the criteria and what the criteria states, what is the UDO's precise terminology? It does say served by adequate public services, one of which is in that parenthetical that follows, schools. So you're certainly within reason to make a decision based off of the letter from the school district, whichever way, and I believe it will be defensible because that criteria needs to be analyzed with each application. Now, that being said, I certainly understand what I can sense is a slight bit of underlying frustration, perhaps from the applicant, from staff, from the commissioners, and maybe from the general public as well as the school district, that there is an issue. There is an issue facing Bluffton and greater Bluffton area with inadequate facilities to serve all the students and all the people that we have coming in. But as Mr. Eicher correctly pointed out, with each of these development agreements, one of the things that's taken into account is the projected growth in the area, whether it's going to be served by the schools. This development agreement's been in place since 2004. There certainly was more than advance notice of this type of development that was going to occur here, and especially if you look at the projected life of that development agreement, none of this should come as a surprise. So it's difficult to fault anybody at this point because a lot of how the school district's hands were tied after 2004. They probably thought that they had different funding mechanisms in 2004 when this was adopted that they don't have now. So again, it's a difficult situation. We certainly understand why the school district has provided this letter. We also understand why the applicant would think that this should not prevent them from being able to move forward with this development. But ultimately, we think it's in the Planning Commission's discretion to make a decision, and obviously for town council as well, to make the decision that they think is in the best interest of the town, but also consistent with the UDO and the development agreements.
Thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, we do have a public comment for this item.
From what?
For this item.
Oh, we do? Okay. Well, then may we hear it?
Jeremiah Orr.
Jeremiah,
You need to come to the microphone, please, and state your name and address for the record, please.
my name is Jeremiah Orr. I'm at 21 Trail Ridge Retreat in the existing Midpoint community. Just a couple of things I wanted to note on here. Pulte has had some conversations with the Midpoint HOA about the development. Pulte provided a few of the emails in the meeting packet. However, Pulte did not provide in the meeting packet the email letter the Midpoint HOA sent to Pulte with our request, nor did Pulte provide the response from Pulte to our request, which was very brief. The current stance of discussions with Pulte is that they're going to have their lawyers draft a proposed agreement with the HOA. However, the HOA has not received the proposed agreement. Approximately 2 weeks has passed. There's also mention in the meeting packet of them having hosted a workshop. I'd like it noted that our HOA was charged for this at our expense, this workshop. You guys were talking about the school. That was another item I had here, so I won't do that. And then the traffic, We would like to see the results of those traffic studies. You can go out there any day of the week for the morning. You cannot take a left-hand turn out of our neighborhood as it is with the existing 100 homes there. I have a video that I could share with anybody. I wish I could have submitted it, showing that traffic backed up for almost 2 miles going out towards May Riverside. So it is already a problem in this neighborhood.
May I ask, are you on the board or are you speaking?
I am speaking for myself. I am on the board with those clarifying on it.
And that doesn't diminish it in any way. I just was curious.
Would the applicant like to respond and verify?
Rob Mayer, Fulton. So as of yesterday, yes, he is correct. We did have the correspondence back and forth. I request to have a sit down meeting with them versus just emails going back. After I did send the response, I got a message from the HOA board that they would like to pursue looking at an agreement, be able to use the access, the amenities, and things like that. So I did respond to them yesterday, letting them know to the board president as well as their HOA manager and their attorney, letting them know that we are drafting the agreements, and then once the agreements are drafted, we would sit down, go through each line item by line item that we can work with, so we can come up to the final terms. And we also agreed and offered to pay a portion of their attorney fees, so that way it wouldn't burden the POA and be able to, so we can come up to a final solution.
Thank you.
I would strongly encourage you all, if, depending on which way, either, whatever we recommend, your next step is town council, and I would encourage the residents that are in here from Midpoint and y'all to iron it out as best you can before you get there.
Great.
Not a necessity, but it'll probably make life easier.
Yeah, just two things. One, to addressing it to the Pulte contract developer. Is there any chance that you can utilize or construct that secondary access first, so that you don't have to have all of that heavy construction going through that Midpoint community?
That is the proposed plan.
It is.
Yes, sir, it is. That is the so we can mitigate that traffic off of Midpoint Boulevard through that secondary access. And part of the agreements that we also are working, trying to come up with the POA, is to work on the maintenance agreements for Midpoint, because currently right now they don't have anything like that in place, that we would take some of that burden for them.
Okay, one other question. I'm always looking at the parking, and what I'm trying to understand is, from the initial master plan that you submitted back in May, there looks like the driveway is about 15-foot property setback on the exhibit. It's page 54 on that exhibit. And I thought we were saying that should be more. That's barely enough to cover a vehicle. And we know most of the people down here have their garages full and park their cars in the driveway. Have you changed that?
Yes.
So originally we had a 50-foot right-of-way cross-section with John Paul with Thompson Hutton. We had a 50-foot right-of-way cross-section with 20-foot side front setbacks. We met with staff after the first planning commission. We worked out and agreed upon, of course, presenting to y'all to approve, of course, a 60-foot, so we widened the right-of-way, but shortened the front setback. And that matches what's in the Phase 1A that's built today. But what we're going to do, the sidewalk's going to be pushed still within that right-of-way section, as shown in that cross-section. Mm-hmm. It shows the sidewalk is closer to the back of curb than it is the property line. So the truck, for instance, that's shown in the exhibit, it won't block the sidewalk. That's the intent there. There's plenty of room. I believe it's 23 feet is how the cross-section reads from the sidewalk to the garage.
Well, if I'm looking at this one, maybe you've updated this drawing. Because this drawing, it looks like the driveway is exactly 15 feet, or a little bit more.
What page are you on?
Page 54 on the master plan agreement. Maybe I'm reading it wrong, so that's possible. That's it.
Yeah, so you're exactly, the driveway isn't 15 feet. The setback is 15 feet. So you've got 15 feet plus the grass swale, plus the sidewalk, plus the other grass swale to the curb.
So the typical 16-foot SUV can park in that driveway and not obstruct the sidewalk.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, the setback's just for the building.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, if I can interject, just one more quick comment I'd like to make, and it's really for the benefit of the public that's watching or that's present here tonight. Some of the comments, including the public comment that recently came up, and as we have discussed at length in prior meetings, when you have issues with homeowners associations and disagreements between neighboring homeowners associations, the planning commission is required by law to stick to the criteria and not necessarily get into the cost-sharing arrangements or how the finances should work out, nor can you delegate any of your authority to getting approval from the adjacent homeowners association, because that's ultimately it's your obligation under the law to provide this recommendation to town council. So it certainly is helpful to know the comments and the concerns, because a lot of them do play into your criteria, such as the transportation element and the density elements and the buffers. But it is also, I want to make sure that people know that y'all can't get into the minutia and help negotiate the best arrangement between the two parties. That's just outside the scope of y'all's job. Okay, thank you.
That's why we're encouraging them to be nice, but we're not talking about specifics.
All right, well, with that, would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the Midpoint New Riverside Master Plan application with conditions as stated by staff, and provide an updated traffic impact analysis based on current conditions. Any recommended mitigation measures shall be included on a development plan prior to final development plan approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. Okay, on to the next, we have new business. River Dog Brewing Company, preliminary development plan, a request by Whitmer Jones Keeper for approval of a preliminary development plan application.
The preliminary development plan for River Dog Brewing Company. Request by Dan Kiefer of Whitmer Jones Keefer on behalf of Michael Bradley Holdings LLC for approval of the preliminary development plan for 50,000 square foot mixed-use commercial building. Property is located on Jennifer Court, northeast of the intersection of Buck Island Road and May River Road. Here's an aerial showing the location of the property. That's a Parker's gas station there in that little notch out to the southwest of the property. Project location again. This application is for preliminary development plan on 3 lots zoned neighborhood core. The individual lots will be recombined at time of final development plan submittal. The project proposed a mixed-use commercial building that includes a 20,000 square foot production brewery and a plus or minus 30,000 square foot space allocated to restaurant tenants, retail tenants, business offices, and a tasting room. The proposed development also includes outdoor dining, a beer garden, event spaces, and a pavilion. Should note that the River Dog Brewing Company previously received preliminary development plan approval, and that was in October of 2017. It was followed by stormwater approval in March of 2018, and it received a certificate of appropriateness for Highway Corridor Overlay District in April of 2018. These original approvals have expired. That's why they're here. That's why they'll have to go through the certificate of appropriateness process again as well. Staff comments on the preliminary development plan were reviewed at the March 16, 2022 meeting of the DRC. And here's the development. This is Jennifer Court. There's 2 points of access, one here and one here. So the parking that is over here brewery is at the top part of the building. Below it is a retail space. And below that is beer garden and pavilion. It's got a 50-foot buffer from Main River Highway. The planning commission shall consider the criteria set forth in section 3.10.3.a of the UDO in assessing an application for a preliminary development plan. The applicable criteria are provided below. And these are the 6 criteria. Planning commission action. Planning commission has the authority to take the following action. Approve the application as submitted by the applicant. Approve the application with conditions. Table the application, or deny the application as submitted by the applicant. Staff recommendation. Town staff finds the requirements of section 3.10.3.a of the UDO is met and recommends that the planning commission approve the application as submitted.
All right. Any questions before we open up? Would the applicant like to speak? Please state your name.
Thank you, Dan Kiefer with Whitmer Jones Kiefer, and thank you everybody for hearing us tonight. We're essentially back with the same plan, so we're here to answer any questions. Got the architectural team here, Cord Atkins, and traffic engineers here as well. So we're here for any questions you have.
Anyone have anything for Dan before I open up for public?
I can wait.
I can wait.
Can we? Okay. Other public comment?
Karen Burrows.
Good evening. My name is Karen Burrows, and I live on the corner of Jason and Red Cedar Street, which is, coming through town is the street before Jennifer Court. There's lots of concerns about the volume of the beer garden and the rest of it. Trucks blocking the way because, as you know, Parker's is there also. How late they're going to operate. And, you know, it's not fair to us that live behind it to have to deal with all of the issues that come with it. I hope you'll keep this in mind, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any others?
Norma Moore.
Hello, and my name is Norma Moore, and I reside at 15 Red Cedar along with my husband, Charles. This is literally in my backyard. My property butts up against the back end of the proposal here. And I realized that this came to council back in 17, although at that time I wasn't notified. And I'm not here to fight the proposal of Riverdog going there. I just have some concerns that I would like for y'all to hear. One of the things I'm concerned about is the outside seating, the music, the noise ordinance that we have here in the town of Bluffton. How is that going to be read? Is that going to be an issue? This is a residential neighborhood behind the proposal. It's not all commercial. One of the other things that I also want to bring up is how late is it going to be open? I know that through the town we had problems with the distillery open late at night and things along that line. The buffer between the properties. Like I said, this literally is in my backyard. If I look out my back door, I see their property. I'm concerned about buffer with landscaping, with noise, possibility of a privacy fence, so they don't have to look in my yard. Based on the drawings that are reviewed, it looks like the outside dining is more along where that retention pond is. Going ahead and moving forward with that, one of my personal concerns is trash can location where you're going to have trucks coming in and dropping items off. My bedroom's not that far from it. So that day-to-day noise of a business, this is a huge business that's being proposed to put in here. And as I was sitting here listening to Dan, one of the concerns is the event planning. Perhaps maybe if we can address what kind of events. Are these events going to go late into the night? Is this going to be just, okay, let's go out and have a beer and then go home and everything's closed by 9, 10 o'clock at night? I don't want to stop it, I just want to make sure that the concerns for those that live literally within walking distance are met. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any others? Dan, would you come up and maybe address some of those concerns that she has as far as buffering, vegetation, fences, noise?
As far as buffering, that would be the eastern property line. And I believe Dan and I were talking about this. So we're required a 10-foot buffer there. That's sort of the code requirement. And right now we're showing a 30-foot buffer area. And if there are any gaps there, we come back for the next meeting when you're reviewing landscape. We can fill those gaps with additional buffer planting material. But we have 30 feet to more, above and beyond what we're required there. I think it's 15 required. And then we're looking at a section of fence on the sort of the northeast corner. And then the dumpster will be totally enclosed. You won't see that. And it'll have 2 or 3 layers of landscape around it, so that won't be visible. And then everything from the beer garden will not be visible beyond the face of the front of the building. So that's all, everything's up front along the front portion along Mayorville Road. So on purpose, we had the beer garden up so it's parallel or adjacent to the commercial property that's under construction now to the east. So all that outdoor activity is
The commercial
is sort of in that commercial district zone. And then as far as, events, obviously we have the town noise ordinance and regulations, in place to monitor that. Any
So if you had
events.
special events, you'd have a special events permit and all that kind
Absolutely.
of thing.
Talk about the fence for a minute. Have we thought through, is it an 8-foot, a 10-foot, a 6-foot? And I'll tell you the reason why I'm asking is because I'm thinking along the lines of what the two people just came up and, before we even got here tonight, I see a pavilion where, let's picture a band playing there. Nothing super outrageous, not an 80s hair band, but, a band playing there. The noise naturally is going to go this way. And to get to asking the question, my thought is put the pavilion so the noise goes towards Parker, where there are no residents, or have a really tall fence there. So what does the fence look like? Do we know? Are we that far in the process? Probably not.
Yeah, as far as the pavilion goes, we really wanted to, from an architectural standpoint, have that up on the street just to sort of anchor that space. And as you know, the noise is going to go straight back to the building and bounce. So
Well, it's not going to go straight back. It's going to go, noise spreads out as well. So
I guess a suggestion would be, could you relook at the orientation of the pavilion,
or noise abatement.
or noise abatement?
yeah, I think noise abatement in the pavilion and then the fencing would be the ideal scenario.
And if planning commission finds it favorable, staff can work with the applicant on potentials of, either shifting the pavilion, looking for that noise abatement. This is something similar that we did with the May River Marketplace, as you remember, where we were able to, put necessary landscaping and other features in there to help to mitigate that noise. Noise ordinance, obviously it's a town-wide ordinance, and that if there's issues, that's when, the police department would come out and address that. So just note that, duly noted, and we'll work with the applicant. I've written down a lot of these comments just to make sure that as it moves forward that we can work on addressing those. So during the certificate of appropriate process, you'll see that as well as the final development plan. Yes.
Well, and just to add to it, think about the distillery for a second. When they built the distillery, they built U-shaped, and their music goes out to 46. This may be perfectly fine, and that's where we rely on staff to work with you on it, but you see where the concerns are. I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
And maybe this is it's not a you question, but maybe Court Atkins question, or for the owner, do we know anything about hours? Is this like just a regular business, like, I don't know, open till 10, or I don't? it's not like a late night kind of vibe.
James Atkins with Court Atkins Group. So a majority of the brewery location, that's typically a morning activity where they make, and there's probably 5 to 7 employees in there, so it's not a heavily trafficked time. The south part of where the restaurants and the retail space, they are intending where it may be a coffee breakfast place in a piece of it, there may be a barbecue place in it, and so those places probably are going to operate normal restaurant hour times. It's not a nightclub or anything like that. And then the brewery tap room will service those restaurant tenants there. So if the barbecue place is closed and the taco place is closed, then the brewery's probably not open serving beer either.
Is it going to be open on Mondays because everything else is closed on?
I haven't gotten into the operation plans with the owner, but you know, it's a significant investment. I'm sure she'll want to be open and filled as much as possible.
Richardson, can we make that a condition of approval?
I don't think that's going to.
If y'all know how hungry I am looking for places on Monday.
I know. We keep going to one particular place and it's like closed every time. I do have a question. That kind of brought up a question for me when you were talking about the brewery and amount of employees. In your parking count, it's at 5, right? Where does that number come from? Like, how do you?
It's the headmaster. It's usually a couple people cleaning the tanks and setting grains, and then there's usually one person running the canning per line.
But I just didn't know if there was somewhere that was like documented that was that formula or something, just so that it would, because we've had other discussions with other people about parking and how they came up with their numbers. So I just didn't know if there was somewhere like for a typical brewery, it's.
I could talk to the owner, and I could have them document.
Yeah, just for staff.
To date.
Just in case.
For the last 10 years, and then.
Yeah, just in case someone asks, because we've run across those kind of questions.
The number was based on their, when we talked to them, their operations.
Madam Chairwoman, could I add to this? You're talking about 5 employees. You have 30,000 square foot of restaurant and retail space. How many tables are you going to have?
But no, they're talking about for the brewery specifically.
I understand that, but they only provided 5 parking spots for employees.
For the brewery itself.
Are there parking, there's 112 spots for the restaurant and the retail space. Does that include the employees?
Yes.
That's everything.
And is there golf carts in that 112?
We're currently not showing golf carts. I said we're in discussion of adding those based on the ability to access by golf cart.
I'm just
Remind you that these are state roads and golf carts are not allowed on Bay River Road or Buck Island Road, so the likelihood of a golf cart going there means that they're going there illegally.
and that's good. What
Promote that.
Perhaps the resident that's adjacent would have a little golf cart.
But so the overall part
what I'm trying to get to is, it's a huge retail restaurant space. I'm curious how many tables you're going to have, because 112 spots, if there's some that have to be allocated to golf carts, and it has to cover the wait staff, doesn't feel like it's going to be enough. It's a huge space. Do you know how many tables you're going to have?
Well, the interesting thing about the restaurant tenants is there's no seating in the restaurant tenant spaces. It is basically the point of sale and the kitchen area, and the seating and the tables are actually in the common area in between. So while it's a big space and there's 3 retail tenants, 3 restaurants, the seating area is only in the common space themselves. So I think the square footage is probably a little deceptive from that standpoint, but based upon the square footage that's required of.
No, I know you're meeting the requirements for 4 spots for every 1,000 square feet. I'm just trying to get a feel for how many typical restaurant patrons and wait staff are you going to have? Will you have enough parking?
Parking is very important to the owner. She'd probably put 10 times if she could, but we feel that it's adequate, and we'll certainly, again, there's going to be, much like restaurants, there's going to be a lunch crowd, there's going to be an evening crowd.
Okay.
Kevin.
not to go into their operations, but when you actually zoom in on this plan and you can see the footprint of the building, this is designed like a market where you have the stalls of the various businesses.
Can we pull this up while you're talking? on the screen, please?
Your
Probably like-
Dan's
Not
plan.
on that one.
Yeah, no, there's one that has,
It's one of the
it says
tougher-
restaurant and retail
yeah,
space,
yeah,
and it has,
does.
So, again, what they're saying is that, a lot of that space is used for the operations, not necessarily the seating. So there's minimal seating on the inside, and then, some other areas where the seating is. So the way that the UDO is designed, it's based off of the overall square footage.
so those are basically stalls of vendors that rent.
Correct.
And the thought is, Ward's Barbecue, whoever, they don't have the upfit cost to build a whole restaurant. They're basically going to upfit their kitchen and their point of sale, and
So-
she provides the common seating areas.
So like food trucks, but they're in the building.
Brick and mortar food truck, if you want to make that kind of analogy.
Excuse me, could you zone out just a little bit so I can see this part that borders my property? I don't read plans, so these circles here, I'm assuming that's tree coverage? Okay, and this is parking here along this line, and this is my house. So I realized that you had said that there was a 30-foot buffer. Do we need those parking spots there, or if they're just
Ma'am.
brewery parking? I'm
Ma'am.
sorry, I realize.
Sorry, yeah.
My bad.
Just to address the comment, that would be the staff parking back there for the brewery operation.
And maybe just take into some consideration of the neighbors as far as like a privacy fence or a little bit more vegetation.
Okay. We'll work on that with the applicant.
Yeah,
Okay.
And possibly a fence, but that's.
Okay.
okay.
I do share Rich's concerns about, and in full disclosure, Rich and I had a conversation earlier today. I mean, in some of our PUDs, it's 12 spaces per 1,000 square feet a restaurant, and here it's 4. And I know that's the UDO requirement, okay? But to steal,
No, I think you want to make sure you have enough, because we don't have a lot of places to park on the streets outside of your parking lot if you have a big event. And that was my concern. Again, I was trying to count up tables and booths and stuff, and that didn't work, to try to get a sense of how many patrons you could have at any time. But again, at the end of the day, 112 spots for patrons and staff during one of these big events, I hope you have enough, because it's going to get messy on, Burnt, on the various Jennifer Court and some of these other roads if people start parking along the road. So again, you're meeting the needs. I understand that. But in the interest of making sure you're meeting the needs, as you talked about the owner is sort of like, whatever you can do to make sure you've got enough spots is good.
well, I have a question now. So if this is going to be land-based food trucks, where's the alcohol portion? Is that the owner is going to be doing just the alcohol?
Yeah, correct. And the tap room sits at the,
Yeah, where is that on here?
fancy highlight. That's the tap room right there, at the end of the common dining zone. So it's a walk up, you get your barbecue sandwich, you go pick up a beer at this counter, and you go sit here, or you sit in the beer garden.
Can you add any on-street parking on Jennifer Court? Like,
We looked at that. Jennifer Court is part of the overall development, as well as with Parker's. And Parker's, as part of, I guess, Parker's owns Jennifer Court. And so they said they did not want parking on Jennifer Court because they were concerned about traffic backing up and people crossing it, and I kind of agree with them. So that was removed, but we did provide a kind of Uber, Lyft, pull off up there. And
drop-off area? Okay.
At the curve?
So I'm just thinking about the use of space. So if I was going to go grab something to eat, I have to, like, the parking lot's kind of far away, but I have to walk down towards the Uber drop-off area, and then I go into the space?
It's the main entry is right.
Yeah, where that part drop-off is. Okay. Let's see. I think we got all of these other questions answered by the public. Anything down there? Are you good?
No, I'm good.
Are you sure? Do you want to
I-
make,
I'm- I-
do you want to make
what-
the motion?
No, there's one, no, I don't yet. There's one other, concern is, I think you did this traffic analysis. Were schools in place, in session or not?
Yes.
They were in session. Because even driving here today on May River Road, it was absolutely bumper to bumper.
Always is.
Always. And I don't know if the one addition, I guess the addition we're making is going from a 4-signal light to a 5-signal light. I worry that it's just going to get really bad. I don't know what to suggest, which is why I don't have a motion to make for that. I'm just really concerned about the traffic
Kevin,
that's going to
what
impact on
say
May
you?
River Road.
They're making some improvements. It's from a 3-head to a 5-head.
I know. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd be willing to make a motion.
Support. Thank you, Jim.
I move that are we recommending this to council, or are we?
This is preliminary development plan. And I'll remind you that this will come back again in front of you for landscaping, lighting, and architecture.
We'll see it again.
HCOD, yeah.
And the final development plan for 3 of you that sit up there for DRC.
Only 2 of us are up here right now, but, okay. I would like to make a motion that we approve the River Dog Brewing Company preliminary plan with the condition that staff work with the developer on the buffering and the fencing along the east property line, and work with the developer on the location of the pavilion along with noise abatement issues as it concerns nearby residents.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're good. Thank you very much.
Please, if I may, please stay involved as they're developing the plans.
It comes
Any
back to us.
Any feedback you can ask for.
You know, I'm not gonna fight it, it's just, like I said, it's my backyard. Yeah.
Well, and
Charlie, you need them.
I know I can't see.
I'm sorry, we'll talk afterwards, how's that sound?
Okay, so the next new business is the UDO amendment. It's a public hearing. So do I do a call for public hearing, calling once, public hearing calling twice, public hearing calling 3 times, and a public hearing? Charlotte.
Thank you. Sorry, apologize for my voice. This is a text amendment. Actually, there are 2 text amendments that are proposed, and this is an amendment that is initiated internally. It was not an application. So the amendments being proposed this evening are to increase the additional building type footprint within the Riverfront Edge Historic District, and also to provide a consistent height for the River House building type. And there's a discrepancy in the ordinance that we'd like to clear up. So let me tell you a little bit about the Riverfront Edge Historic District. It is located along the May River. It begins approximately in the Stock Farm area and goes east to just east of Pritchard Street. It includes 32 lots. Most of the lots are developed with a single-family home, and most of those homes were developed before 2011 when the UDO was adopted. And if you're not familiar with Old Town has 5 zoning districts, and there is a form-based code for Old Town. So each of the 5 districts actually requires certain building types within those districts. The Riverfront Edge also includes civic buildings, including Church of the Cross and Oyster Factory Park. And here's what I mentioned before. So here's a graphic from the UDO, and it does identify the 4 building types, or the 5 building types that are permitted, including 4 that are residential: cottage, vernacular, center hall, and river house. And additionally, we have something called an additional building type. And additional building types were added to anticipate that Perhaps someone couldn't meet all of the requirements specifically required of a particular building type. So the additional building type allows a little bit of flexibility. And what we determined in looking at the information of these homes along the river in the Riverfront Edge District is that most of them are probably an additional building type. They were built, most of them from the late 1800s through the mid-20th century. Some of them may have started off as a cottage, but they've been added onto over the decades, and they've really ended up becoming more of an additional building type. So, and that's important. One of our concerns, and let me identify this too, so both of these graphics are from the UDO. The Riverfront Edge graphic, as you see here, identifies the dimensional requirements. That would be the setbacks and the frontage, the build-to line. It also includes the height. In the design section of the UDO, we identify, or the UDO identifies what the building size range would be and what the footprint would be. And it also identifies the height. So that's where our discrepancy is coming into play in this particular case for the row house building type. If you see here, and let me use this. So the additional building type is identified here in the Riverfront Edge information, and it identifies what the setbacks are. However, the additional building type is not defined by the ordinance, so it doesn't specifically identify what the building size range is or the maximum footprint is. And that became a little bit of a concern last year when we talked about commercial development and there not being either the building size range or the maximum footprint. So there was a text amendment that was done that indicated for an additional building type that the building footprint and the building size range would be based on the buildings that allowed the largest building footprint and building size within a particular district. So for the Riverfront Historic District, the maximum building footprint that would be permitted is 2,000 square feet, and then the maximum building size would be 5,500 square feet. That's based off on the Center Hall building type. So getting back to what the amendment's about, it's about the building footprint. At 2,000 square feet for the Riverfront Edge, that's probably too minimal, and in fact, most of the homes within the Riverfront Edge are non-conforming in terms of the building footprint. I believe the average is about 2,500 square feet. But one of our concerns and one of the reasons for bringing forward this amendment and suggesting a larger building footprint than 2,000 square feet is that we believe that some of these homes, given more modern desires and standards, that potentially there may potentially be some loss of homes if we don't allow a larger building footprint. We have seen one home built, I believe, last year, actually brand new, actually took down another home, and there was a home built in its place. So this really is anticipating the need for a larger building footprint. So the suggestion here, this is the proposed text amendment, is to allow the UDO administrator to approve a building footprint up to 5,500 square feet. And again, this is not an absolute 5,500 square feet. If you're not familiar, all of the reviews for new development, new construction within Old Town has to go to the Historic Preservation Commission based on a recommendation from the UDO administrator with regard to building size. So it's not an absolute 5,500 square feet. The building footprint should be based on another building type that's characteristic of the Riverfront Edge District. And so we believe that this is kind of a way to allow for that larger building footprint without completely saying up to 5,500 square feet or allowing 5,500 square feet. So you might want to take a look at that for just a moment. And then the second amendment that we are proposing is making certain that our riverfront or river house rather, building height is consistent, and we believe it should be 1.5 to 2 stories. So those are the two things. Again, the amendment to allow the UDO administrator to suggest up to 5,500 square feet for a building footprint, and the building height consistency for the river house. So applying the text amendment criteria, items 1 through 4, in this case, do not apply. And the application is consistent with the application's manual. And so the Planning Commission can either approve as submitted by staff, make an amendment, or deny. If you make a vote this evening, it will move forward to Town Council on September 13th with a public hearing and a final reading on October 11th. And based on staff's recommendation, here's a possible motion that you may want to consider. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you. Do you have any questions down there? You look like you do.
So, yes, I do. So we're saying we're going to the footprint of 5,500 square feet. So 2 stories, you could be seeing 11,000 square foot.
Not necessarily.
I'm asking.
No, the building size would remain the same. So we are not recommending that the building size change, only the footprint.
So what is the building size?
So it will vary by what's proposed. So right now, the maximum building size is 5,500 square feet.
But you're changing the footprint to 5,500.
It could be a
Only
one-story.
proposing a change of the footprint, not the overall building size. The building size could be a 1-story, it could be 2, it could be 2.5 stories.
Maybe I can help explain a little bit. So, a lot of the lots in the Riverfront Edge property or district are an acre plus, so they're very large lots. And in the table where you can see that we already have, what is it, 21 homes already constructed. A lot of these lots are already established with homes on them. And most of the homes now are not even, they don't even meet the current criteria. Our goal is to allow people the opportunity that already have a single-story home, that want the ability to expand on their homes if they want to put additions onto their homes. Like right now, they can't. So literally, they would have to, tear down their home, rebuild 2 stories in order to get that additional square footage. So the intent is to allow for people to keep their homes, or actually preserve the homes that are there now and add on to them. Again, since so many of the lots are already established, this will only affect a few of the properties. It gives them the ability to make those expansions that they need for various reasons. And that way they're then consistent. One of the things that we always try to do in the planning world is that if people continually have to come in to get a variance for a certain item, that means that the code is wrong and we need to change the code. And that's what's happening in this situation.
And are any of these residences historic or significant? I mean,
Yes.
So has historic preservation looked at this too?
They have reviewed this. Their recommendation was 3,500 square feet for the maximum building footprint.
And where did they come up with that number?
That was through a very long discussion. We talked about the building footprints out there presently, which 3,500 square feet would be a little bit more, but that was probably the concern with staff probably was not going to be substantial enough, and that we'd still experience requests for variances.
Again, I also like to remind you that the majority of these homes have their front setback is from the river. So you have to remember that, and I believe it's 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a substantial amount of distance from the river.
And it's, on some of them, though, they're older houses, so those lines have changed over the years, so they're really getting pigeonholed every single time something changes.
Yes.
To be clear, I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't fix the UDO so that we avoid the variances. struck between the 5,500 and the 3,500. I see some of the dates of some of these homes. You know, the McMansion concept hits me. It's sort of like, well, I'll buy this place, tear it down, and build my 5,500 square foot whatever, and we lose some history. But you're saying that we have a way to protect that.
Yeah.
We
That's
do.
the HPC.
Okay.
Because they're going to rule over architecture, which will talk about scale and massing.
Okay.
And then, like she said, with the 55, if that's the total square footage, that's like a one-story house or a two-story house that's 3,000 on the bottom and 2 up, or whatever it may be, however they,
That actually restricts more homes
yeah.
from having the ability to do any type of expansion.
So we're not changing the maximum square footage. It's still 5,500. Correct?
It's the footprint.
It's the footprint versus the number of stories.
Right. It gives the ability for a existing one-story homes, the ability to expand out instead of up. Just the sheer cost to remove a roof and add on is.
And they still have to use stormwater BMPs, correct?
They'd have to get their stormwater affidavits, yes.
So every lot would be specific.
Yes. And still has to be reviewed by HPC.
Just one more thing. So 5,500 footprint. Do we have any, I know this is going to sound weird, do we have any requests or suggestions that people want to go more than 5,500 square foot as far as the total house? Are we going to come back and have that discussion 6 months from now?
This is anticipating that will happen and is likely to happen, given that these are riverfront lots and very desirable.
No, he's saying more than 55.
I'm saying you're not changing the total square footage. You're changing the footprint. I get it. Are there desires out there to change the total square footage, and we'll be back talking about that in 6 months?
To go higher, you mean?
Yes.
I doubt that can happen on these lots, some of them.
Okay.
Unless they're completely demolishing everything, which then still has to go back through HPC for approval.
I think I know where he's going too, so we're not going to,
Change it again?
not going
I don't want to increment my way to, 10,000 square foot homes.
Well, I think that's where staff comes into play too, and they're going to help limit that. They're not going to just let us keep changing anything. They're not going to recommend that.
We don't want to end up with large, skinny houses like certain areas of Hilton Head on the beach.
We have nothing now that's 5,500 square feet out there. Most everything is in, looks like to be the 2,000-3,000 range overall.
Thank you.
Okay, does we have a motion for a recommendation?
I'll do it. I move to recommend we approve the amendments to the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances, Chapter 23, Unified Development Ordinance, Article 5, Design Standards to increase the footprint for the additional building types, Section 5.15.5, in the Riverfront Edge HD zoning district, and to provide a consistent height for the river house building types, Section 5.15.5.e and 5.15.8.m.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anything else? Kevin?
Man, we don't.
May I have a motion for adjournment? Second? Anybody else want to discuss it? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Nobody looked at me at that.